Great news for fans of classic British science fiction. Blake 7 is coming to Blu-ray. Let's find out more. Welcome back to my world of stuff. My name, Paul Mount. Doing a video today, Thursday, which I wasn't expecting to do because a bit of news dropped into my email inbox this morning. I'm still, I think, subscribed to the BBC for publicity information. Back from the days when I used to get preview DVDs for Doctor Who for Starburst magazine reviews. And I still get the occasional email from them about new genre-related happenings from the BBC. And the one that came in this morning, and I'm sure the news will be spread across the internet far and wide very quickly, is that Blake 7, the classic BBC space opera from the 70s into the 80s, is coming to Blu-ray at last. Now, Blake 7 occupies an interesting place in the history of British science fiction. British science fiction is an odd thing. It goes right back to the 50s, but it was very often just a drama strand. It wasn't particularly ghettoised, I think, in the way that perhaps it is now. I think it was just something that was done. The TV would attempt to make science fiction programmes that were just part of the mix. I think since the rise of geek culture and people's expectations of what science fiction is, British television in particular is a little bit more wary of dipping its toe into the genre, mainly because it's been bitten on the backside several times with shows that were pilloried and laughed at and not very successful. But that wasn't always the way. Today we get things like Doctor Who, and we get the odd little exploration into the genre here and there. But back in the 60s and 70s, it was all very different. Of course, in the 60s, we had old Gerry Anderson shows, which have a massive cult following. Doctor Who, of course, is the biggie as far as the UK is concerned. But I would say that the second biggest genre show in British TV history is Blake 7, which debuted in 1978, very shortly after Star Wars had arrived at cinemas, which didn't do Blake 7 any favours, unfortunately. It then ran for 4 years, very successfully. It had very good ratings. It had a very strong fan base, not in the way that there are fan bases today. They're very vocal and tell you what they like and particularly what they don't like. But it was a very popular show, drawn to the characters rather than the visuals, because this was made, I believe, legendarily, it was made on the budget of the recently axed police series Z-Cars. And we're now talking about a big universe-spanning science fiction series with spaceships and costumes and aliens and so on. And Blake 7 ran for 4 years, as I say, very popular. And it was actually very good. But its reputation has been a bit battered over the years because it's tended to look a bit tatty and homespun because that's the way it was made. And I think if you watch it now, you will be aware of production difficulties. It was made in that BBC Studios era of clumpy wooden sets. It doesn't have the gloss of today's productions, but as I've said before in these videos, I actually quite like that BBC studio feel. There's an immediacy and an intimacy to it that film doesn't have. Film, I think, distances you a little bit from the action, whereas video has a clarity that puts you there in the middle of it all. I remember seeing repeats of Blake 7 when it was shown on UK Gold years ago, when channels were just rediscovering the history of television, particularly UK Gold, which before it rebranded as a comedy channel, used to show all sorts of dramas, lots of Doctor Who, I think more or less from the beginning, lots of quite obscure sci-fi shows as well. And I remember watching Blake 7 when they showed it, I think, on a Sunday morning, and I was a bit struck by how tatty and ropey it looked. But I am conscious of the fact that this is a show whose fascination goes beyond that, and is about the characters and the situation. I think people liked particularly the character of Avon, played by Paul Darrow, this sort of manipulator, cold, logical, probably Blake 7's take on Spock. The show has been often unfairly compared to Star Trek. The two shows are very different, but I think because it was a space opera with a spaceship, people make that connection. And of course you get Gareth Thomas playing Rog Blake, sturdy, foursquare, solid, a man who in a futuristic Earth where humanity lives under this horrible dome, he is framed for terrible crimes and shipped off to a prison planet across space. And he, along with other prisoners, manages to escape from the prison ship on a handy alien spaceship called the Liberator, which is drifting nearby. And that sets up the 4-season arc of Blake and this ragtag group of rebels fighting against the oppressive Federation, and very often coming into contact with the mysterious Servalan, played by Jacqueline Pierce, this Ice Queen, president of the Federation, who was determined to bring Blake and his crew down. Really adventurous series with lots of clever ideas, created by Terry Nation, of course, who created the Daleks, and one of my favourites, Survivors. And it's now coming to Blu-ray, is what this is all about. BBC have announced it's coming to Blu-ray, and they're giving this series the Doctor Who box set treatment, and I'm very pleased about that. The first series is coming. I will put a link in the description to the trailer you can find on YouTube. I'm not going to embed it here for reasons I'll explain actually at the end of this video. But you can see the trailer, and it looks as if they have done another Doctor Who job, because it's got the same approach to Doctor Who box sets. It's very comprehensive, and it looks thoroughly at the series, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. So you've got the first 13 episodes that make up the first series. I believe they're all written by Terry Nation, which establishes the format of the series and the sort of Robin Hood in space type vibe that he was going for. This box set includes 6 discs, all remastered. They got new visual effects. Now that's one of the sticks that's so often used to beat Blake 7 with it. The special effects look terrible. Well, from the trailer, which is in the link down below, you'll see that every episode has got new special effects, space effects, visual effects, which is going to bring it up to a much more acceptable standard. It's not going to be glossy Marvel Hollywood standard, but it's going to be very, very good quality visual effects. You can see from the shots that are included that there are some very good space scenes, and it just ups the ante and makes the show a little bit more contemporary. And in the best tradition of the Doctor Who Blu-rays, there are lots of new features, lots of new documentaries, and that's what's drawing me in. There is a new 85-minute documentary, feature length basically, about the making of the first series, how it came together, how it was cast, how it was created, all the problems that the production team faced. This is directed by Chris Chapman, who's directed many of the long-form documentaries that we see on the Doctor Who Blu-ray set, so you can expect the same level of detail and craftsmanship here. Apparently there are lots and lots of brand new interviews that have been conducted for this set. It's going to be a must-watch. It also includes the making of Blake 7. Now this is a documentary strand that was made for the original DVD releases back in the early 21st century. I can't remember now when Blake 7 came out on DVD. And I think a fan called Kevin Davis, who'd been responsible for a lot of the computer animation on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series, he created a making of documentary series that would have accompanied those DVDs, but there were certain rights issues, and I think most of it's never been issued before, but now obviously that's all sorted, and that's here as well as a historical document, because we must remember that many of the cast from Blake 7 are no longer with us. Gareth Thomas is gone. Paul Darrow, who played Avon, is gone. I think that David Jackson, who played Gan, is gone. Jacqueline Pierce from Servalan is gone. Stephen Grief, the original Travis, gone. So hopefully there's lots of interview material of an archive nature from them in this feature. We've also got a 35-minute feature looking at Stephen Grief, the actor who played Travis, Space Commander Travis, Servalan's thug in the first season. Very well respected actor, great actor, and there's a 35-minute documentary just remembering him. We also have Matthew Sweet, who does a lot of the interviews for the Doctor Who Blu-ray sets. He's conducting an interview with Michael Bryant, who directed the very first episode of Blake 7, who I think has some interesting things to say about the shape and form of the series, and actress Sally Nivert, who played Jenna Stannis, one of the original crew in the first 2 series. I think she was in the first 2. And I think it was her first TV role. So obviously she'll be talking to him about her perception of the character and working on television for the first time. In addition to this, there seems to be a feature where she, and I believe it's Jan Chappell, who plays Callie, visit the original large Blake 7 Liberator model, which still exists, and they're sort of looking at it and talking about it. That looks really interesting. There's lots of archive features. All the stuff that was on the original DVD releases will be there. Convention footage. All the stuff that you normally get on the Doctor Who DVD sets and Blu-ray sets is going to be here on Blake 7. So I'm actually very excited about this. I'm not the world's biggest Blake 7 fan, but I think over the years I've come to appreciate it a bit more and understand the subtext and appreciate the appreciation people have for the relationships. So I think it's very interesting to see the show now being buffed up for the 21st century this way. And I think and hope that this might actually move the show away from the tacky sort of low-rent sub-Star Trek reputation it has, which never deserved. I think it was always better than that. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than Star Trek, but I think it's better than a lot of its critics would have and have had you believe. This is out, I think it's November the 11th. I'll put the proper date down below if that's not right. And a couple of images which have been released from the set so you know what it looks like. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be really nice, and it'll be very nice to sit down and watch Blake 7 with a fresh pair of eyes, looking at the new visuals and seeing how they've brought it up to a more acceptable 21st century standard. Very much looking forward to this. I hope you are too. If you're a fan of Blake 7, let me know if you're going to buy this set. Leave a comment down below, your thoughts and opinions on Blake 7. I think this is exciting news, and personally, I'm also hoping that maybe somewhere down the line we might get Survivors, which is one of my absolute favourite TV series of all time, on Blu-ray. Whether that will happen, I don't know. Probably a bit more of a cult again than Blake 7. But no, I'm interested to see this. It's always good to see classic British science fiction, particularly this type of science fiction, being offered to a new audience who might not have seen it before. Blake 7 is out in November. Before I go, I mentioned earlier on about not showing the trailer in this video, and it's an odd one. I just wanted to mention, anybody who looked at my review of the Doctor Who story Revenge of the Cybermen, which went up yesterday, will have noticed quite a slightly odd edit at one point. Now, the strange thing was, when I recorded it, I just took on my camera, very quick footage, 5-10 seconds, of the Doctor Who title sequence with the title Revenge of the Cybermen by Jerry Davies, and then cut to my review of the story afterwards. Now, I did this with Brain and Morbius a couple of weeks ago. I did the same sort of thing, filmed the footage of the title sequence, no problems at all. But when I uploaded the edited video of Revenge last night, it was globally blocked because of massive copyright breach. I thought, this is very odd. I don't really understand that. And first of all, I wondered if it was the sequence from the title sequence of Freewheelers, which I used later on talking about Ronald Leyhunt. But it turns out it was this very short fragment of Doctor Who's title sequence. YouTube has a facility whereby they will cut out the offending bit, which I did. I allowed them to do that. Unfortunately, then when the video was uploaded, it hadn't cleanly edited it. So the jump from me going to watch the Blu-ray to me talking about this story, there was a juddering edit where half a sentence was cut off from what I was saying. So that wasn't my edit. So if you've looked at that video and thought, ooh, that's dodgy editing, that was YouTube, not me. This morning I re-edited the video myself and did what my edit would have been. But unfortunately, you can't replace the video on YouTube. You can upload it again, but that gives you a different URL reference, and of course you lose all the reactions and comments and so on. So I've just decided to leave it as it is. So if you've watched Revenge of the Cybermen and thought that was an odd cut, that wasn't me, that was YouTube doing a bit of a hack job on something which apparently I wasn't allowed to use. The whole business with using videos and clips and trailers is very odd, because some things are copyright, some things aren't. I mean, I've done Doctor Who videos in the past where I've used the entire original Doctor Who theme tune across my credits. Not a word, not a whisper. This is the first time I've had this where they've blocked a video globally, so obviously something had to be done about it, and I allowed them to do it. But no, I've used trailers. I mean, I think when you're talking about classic old films, you can use trailers from films from the 50s and 60s. Last week I did my review of Alien Romulus, and I used clips from the trailer, muted, in the background. That wasn't a problem. So it's all very hit and miss, and it's very, you never know what's going to be copyrighted or not. But I just wanted to explain for anybody who watched The Revenge of the Cybermen why there's that very odd edit about 4.5 minutes in, where it suddenly jumps halfway into a sentence. That was YouTube cutting out the offensive bit. But as I said, I re-edited it myself this morning, but I can't replace the old video with the new one without consequences. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in for anybody who might be remotely interested. Once again, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about Blake 7. If you're going to buy the Blu-ray, I'll see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.